Okay, there we go. So welcome everyone. What I was about to say was that Linda and I designed this course in response to a session that we had, her Brunch Bite series, where we were talking with synagogue administrators about the benefits and considerations of having an online Hebrew school experience course. And so this course kind of developed out of that. And it's a course that's really intensive, and it's to provide a full experience for people interested in teaching online so that they have all the tools and support they need to do it effectively the first time. This is definitely the direction that education is going as a whole. And also for Hebrew school, people are starting to think, what are we going to do for our students that live far away, for our students that are involved in a lot of activities and aren't coming to school often enough, and yet the family still wants them to have a B'nai Mitzvah. So this was an idea that we had to prepare people so that if and when you try it, because chances are it's going to happen in the next few years, you do it right the first time. My fear in an experience like this is that when people go in and they don't know what they don't know, and they try it out thinking, we have a really great teacher, so let's put that teacher online. And they think that that's all they really need is a great teacher. And then when it fails, they think the idea failed, not that this particular situation failed. A really great teacher could be a great online teacher, but there are things that they need to know in order to be effective the first time. So that's where this course came from, recognizing that need. So just a little bit about me. My background is in museum education, which is education in any non-traditional setting, really, not just museums. And so teaching in Hebrew school, in my opinion, really fits the bill because it's not where we're not tied to national or state standards. We don't have the same politics of a day school. And we just want our kids to learn, but while having fun. And we might have other important goals, like just feeling a connection to the synagogue and community and to Judaism in their own way. So that background has really helped me in devising this course. Plus, in the past 5 years, I was an instructional designer teaching college instructors how to teach online effectively, create classroom community, and also creating the interactive learning engagements for teachers in all subject matter. And I also help the teachers develop their course outline. So, not just teaching them how to teach, but also helping them structure their classes and, like I said, develop the resources and create an experience that the students would enjoy and find it to be like a meaningful learning experience for them. And in the past 4 years, I've been teaching Hebrew online for Beth Emet in Evanston, Illinois. And that came out of a program where we were trying to get kids who weren't coming to class. In this particular case, it's because the kids are overprogrammed. And we were trying to give them opportunities to continue their learning. We tried a homework program where they had fun, engaging activities that were all online, like games and videos and things. And those were the kinds of activities that they would do in place of coming to school on the days that they missed. But that was only mildly successful. In fact, I wouldn't call it a success for most people. But that's when we decided to try this online Hebrew class. And that's been enormously successful. We've grown exponentially every year. So now we're up to 3 classes, or last year were 3 classes. And this coming year, I don't know, but there's more and more interest. And it's not the kids that are coming every week to school that want to take the online class. It's the ones that aren't coming. It really is for the people that can't make it to school. And in some cases, they can make it to school most of the year, but during soccer season, they can't. And so that's when they'll come to me. And in my day job, I work with a company that develops online resources and interactive resources for STEM labs. So this is the kind of stuff I'm exploring all the time, and there's a good chance that even the technologies that I'm thinking of sharing with the group now might change over the course of the year as new things come up. I'm always researching them, and I'm always happy to share whatever is the latest and greatest. Any questions about that so far? No? Okay. Just remember that if you do have questions, you'll have to unmute your mic first, which if you hover your mouse towards the bottom of your screen should be towards the left. There's a chance that you'll have to look for your options bar at the top of your screen. So we already covered a little bit of this, why teach online and how it's helpful for students. And I'll give you a second to just look at this slide, and I'm wondering if there are any other things that you feel I've left off that are relevant to how this could be helpful, because then also that might address some of the questions that you might have later in terms of how this should work. And the other option, just so you know, if you don't want to speak, you can also use the chat.
So one comment that popped into my head right away is I have over the years had a number of students that don't fit in socially.
Mm-hmm.
They don't talk, they keep to themselves, and it's usually something that the parents talk to us about before the beginning of the school year. And actually, the last 7 years I've been teaching Dalit Hebrew, and I've had at least one or two every year that are like that. They have socialization issues even at that age. And that's another good reason, rather than one-on-one tutoring at a synagogue or in their home, to do something online. It would be more comfortable for students like that as well.
And actually, so I'm glad you brought that up, because we are going to investigate some technologies that require every student to participate. But if you're a shy student and you don't feel comfortable speaking, you could still be sharing with the teacher what you've learned without having to get out of your comfort zone. I mean, part of it is I would hope that we create a comfortable environment, one which all the students will feel comfortable participating out loud. But if not, then we could still be gauging at all times how they're doing. And actually, the specific technologies I'm thinking of are ones that could be used in an in-person classroom environment as well, if people have the technology available. So the other thing too with this class is you'll be learning about a lot of technologies, getting to use them, and that might be something that you could share with your classroom teachers as well, either to use in class, or they could be things that could be supplements like homework. And if they're aware of them, then they might be able to integrate them into their classroom teaching. So, but I appreciate you bringing that up. It really, if you do it right, it becomes a very comfortable environment. And I've even had kids that we would have our classes by ability, not by age so much, because, well, as we grow, maybe eventually we'll have it by grade, but we just didn't have enough kids to have a fourth grade class, a fifth grade class, sixth grade, at least not a couple years ago. And so we combined the students, and in one case we had a precocious fourth grader, the only one with a fifth and sixth grade class, a girl, and then we had a sixth grade boy. And I let the students use the chat, and it's okay if they're not talking about Hebrew school or what we're learning, as long as they could still focus enough to participate in class and not be disruptive. I'm okay if they're talking about some event that's happening over the weekend that they're both planning to go to, or other things. And I found that these two were bonding and they were becoming friends, which may not happen if they were in person, because she was super tiny, really small even for a fourth grader, and he was a normal size sixth grader. So, you face that, and then they wouldn't be in the same classes. And when would two people like that come together? But in this class, it didn't matter. They were all like classmates. You see each other's faces, but you don't necessarily recognize that you might be in different, social groups or in different classes otherwise. And it was really a beautiful thing to see.
That's awesome. Well, the only addition to that is I've never gone throughout the year with a student in the classroom that starts out that way where it ends up that way as you get into the year. Sometimes it takes longer with some of them than others, but eventually they all find one or two friends, if not more, in the classroom. But an online experience might be best, if you can do something with your class, even if you have the physical class, if you can do something occasionally with your class at the beginning of the year, especially to help those kids get more comfortable, it probably would make it an easier experience, and they would become that more comfortable quickly
Yes.
with
And
being in
actually,
the class as well, which is something that is important for people to think about.
yes, and actually you're also reminding me that with the technology that I'm referring to that allows you to gauge how all students are doing at all times, regardless of who's actually answering the questions out loud. We'll take a look at that in a little bit, and you'll also see how that could start a conversation that really validates some students that might otherwise be quiet, where you could anonymously share work, and it might be their work, and then they get to see, oh, wait a minute, I do pretty well here. I don't have to be so uncomfortable. I do just fine. Maybe it's okay for me to answer questions out loud because my teacher keeps showing my work as one of the good examples. So there's a lot of opportunity here, and I'm just so excited to share it with you. So the next slide here, just to go over a little bit more what the class specifically is about. So we're here to prepare teachers who want to teach online. Most teachers, I believe, will not be teaching this fall. They're preparing for future years of teaching online. Maybe at their school there's an initiative where they'd like to explore whether or not this is a possibility for the 2017 school year. So those needs will definitely be addressed. But if there is a teacher who will be teaching this fall online in some capacity, there's ongoing support for them. So we have assignments that are geared towards preparing everyone for the experience of teaching online effectively. But for those who are in the middle of teaching, there are additional sessions that aren't required for everyone. I hope everyone will attend, but they're specifically designed to touch base with those who are in the middle of teaching, make sure that they have all their needs met, questions answered, advice if they're struggling with something. And part of that too is in preparation for preparing an e-portfolio at the end. So one thing that I feel is very important, and this is something I did with my college instructors, is it's one thing to take a class, it's another thing to really engage with the material and have something to show for it at the end. That you could show future employers. These skills go beyond Hebrew school, and they really will be a great addition to a resume for anyone who's thinking of, growing in their career. And so given that, being able to not just teach online, but teaching synchronously, so in the live real-time setting, a lot of training programs nowadays are webinars. And webinars are a little flat, if you ask me. There's not really a reason to be at them live typically, but teachers who go through this will have the skills to make those far more engaging. So I hope that people who participate will recognize that it's more than just how to teach online, but there are going to be multiple benefits to them in their career. And also in terms of Hebrew school, the Jewish community, the BJE is going to award certificates of completion to people who do participate. And those who decide to do the full practice in theory, you're either in the middle of teaching right now and therefore you're going to do all the homework because it's going to help you with your classes, or people that decide they aren't teaching this fall, but they want to have an e-portfolio to show future employers or their current school. And therefore they're going to do all the homework. They're going to have this really great archive of work to show, and will be able to earn a certificate endorsed by the BJE. The other thing that I'm hoping to do, so some of you are affiliated with a synagogue, and you would teach for them, and that's great. But some of you are not necessarily teaching for synagogue right now, but having these skills means that, you know, you'd be in high demand as soon as a synagogue is ready for someone to have them teach online. And so I've already connected with multiple synagogues that would love to have something like this, but they just don't feel they have anyone on staff right now that would be comfortable with this method of teaching. And so I can't make any promises, but I certainly am going to make every effort to pair those people up with synagogues who would like to have programs of this nature. I do see that there are some chat messages, and I'm going to ask Linda if you wouldn't mind keeping tabs on the chat, because it's going to be hard for me to do that and manage. But if you notice a question in the chat that I should address out loud, then that would be awesome. I do see that there's a question about taking the class if you don't live in Chicago, and the answer is absolutely. This class is for everyone, which is why I invited so many of you, even though you don't live in Chicago. And the Board of Jewish Education in Chicago. If you are in Chicago, there's a chance that your synagogue is a member of the BJE, and therefore the class might be free for you. If you're not in Chicago, then it's not free, but we tried to make it as affordable as possible, so even if a teacher has to pay him or herself, it's not going to break the bank, and it'll be of, you know, great value, especially considering the cost to the number of class sessions and the amount of support that we will be providing. So let's see, did I miss anything? Oh, and this class is going to model the actual teaching experience and learning experience of your students. So one thing that I find to be really important, and I would do this with my college instructors, is they would take a class I had called STOMP, Successful Teaching Online Mentoring Program, and they were my students, and I made them suffer. Lucky for you, I'm not going to make you suffer, but what I mean by making them suffer is, in that particular case, so much of the class depends on a learning management system putting content into what they call a course shell. You log in, and it's, you know, where all of your class materials are. That's not something I recommend for teaching, you know, elementary school, middle school kids. High school could be, and even the older middle school possibly. But for you, I will use that as a tool. But anyhow, with them, I would make them suffer. I'd make them feel what it's like to be a student so that they could have compassion for their students, and also recognize when a student has a real issue that's worth addressing and working with them, and when the student's just trying to, you know, take advantage of the system a little bit, and also how to create their materials in a way so that students won't have the stress of dealing with a class that's not quite set up right. You know, could you imagine trying to do your homework and the links are broken, and now you know that the assignment's due tomorrow, you waited to the last minute to do it. You should be able to, because, I mean, if that's how your style of working, but if the links are broken, now you can't, and you didn't give yourself enough time to ask the questions, that kind of thing. In the case of teaching online in a live situation like this, that's not necessarily the issue, but there are issues with technology, you know, making sure that people understand the technology requirements so that they're not having a stressful situation trying to work through technology issues, and then realizing that, oh, I just didn't know that I couldn't use this type of, you know, mobile device with this tool. You know, it's just saving people a lot of hardship. So that's part of the experience, is really feeling what it's like to be a student as well.
Stephanie?
Yes.
There's one more bullet on the 2 slides ago. I just thought it would be worthwhile to add in terms of the reasons why you want to teach online, and it's a side issue, and that is you can record your sessions.
Yes.
And for example, eTeacher, which is one of the language courses that I've also participated in for years, eTeacher records every single session and every single comment. And so if a person can't make a session, which is, I guess, like they have a conflict or whatever it might be, they can still see the session in recorded mode. Not as good as being live and being able to ask questions, but at least they go through the material, they're able to hear other students' questions, and they can sort of feel like they've been in the class. And that's something you don't do in a normal class. You don't normally have a camera in the class and you're recording the teacher.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up. And depending on how you work things out with your school, you might be the Sunday teacher and the online weekday teacher. And if that's the case, then you kind of know where your students are. And there might be students that you can share your weekday recording with. You know, they missed on Sunday. There may be relevance to sharing the weekday recording with students who aren't even in the online class. You might have students who are in the online class who missed, like you said, and then this will be a way to catch them up. There are a lot of great applications for it. And it may also be that you record your session and you teach a couple really important little lessons. Maybe you just cut out those couple minutes of those lessons, and now you have those little snippets available online for everybody in the school. It might be a lesson that everyone can use for a supplement to what they're learning. So thank you for bringing that up, Gary.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Adela would like to know how you keep kids committed to coming and participating.
Great. Well, for one, the very first year I did this, I was a little worried about that myself because the kids enrolled in my class, I was doing that homework program previously, and so I knew all of their names because none of them would ever be in school. So they were probably absent 90% of the time or more. These kids are actually, once we had class, they were in class every single week. The only time any of them were gone, and out of 7 kids, that's pretty good. The only time any of them were gone were if they were in another country for like Thanksgiving or spring break or something. But otherwise, even when they were sick, they brought their snotty Kleenexes and their pajamas to class, and they were there because it's in the comfort of their home. So part of why this works is because we're making a very flexible environment for them. Ideally, they're at home while they're doing this, so they could be in front of a desktop and they have their device. I like to ask students to have both a desktop or laptop computer and a mobile device. But when you're teaching, you don't have to do that. You'll see through the course which kinds of activities benefit from that environment and then which you could do without that environment, and that might be good enough. So ideally, that's where they are. But if they had to, I've had kids come in using their iPad or their phone, and I don't know where they are really, but they're in class because they know what time it is. It's every week. They know that wherever they are, as long as they have some form of device with Wi-Fi, they can be there. The parents help a lot, but at the same time, I interview parents a lot because I want to see how things are going and what we could do to improve for future years. And one in particular told me that she didn't even have to remind them to show up. They just knew when class was, and they were excited about it. So part of it is the fact that this is so flexible, they could do it from home. The other part is using games and activities that are fun and engaging so that they look forward to it. I actually have the issue of kids wanting to stay over time a lot, to the point where they'll say, oh, can we just finish this game? And we're already 3 minutes after time, and I'll tell them, okay, we could play as long as your parents let you, because these are evening classes, so for some of them they have bedtime at 8 o'clock. But if your parents tell you that you have to go, then we have to stop. And then that translates into, Miss Stephanie said that we could finish our game. And then I have to tell the parents that no, actually I said that whenever you say we're done, that's when we're done. So, and that's why this course I feel is really important, because to create that kind of learning experience takes practice. It's not something that comes naturally even for a really great classroom teacher, because there's a lot of logistics involved in creating a classroom experience that has a really great flow. Flow is extremely important in this kind of class, making sure there's not any downtime when kids could start getting a little anxious or bored, because if that happens in an in-person class, well, I guess you can't smack your kids anymore, but you can get face to face with them and say, hello, pay attention. But when, you're online and they're in a different room, you can't walk over to them and get them to pay attention. So that's part of what we're going to learn. And so hopefully you've had a chance to look at these course outcomes that are written here. The classroom community, building that, also being really important in terms of engagement. And I'll also highlight the preparation that's involved in making this a really great experience. So teaching online is not one of those things that you can do effectively if you're planning your class 15 minutes before class, or the day of class. You could possibly plan it the day of class, but you really need to give yourself the time to establish what you're doing, and then your plan B and C and D. I've had times where I was so excited about what I was about to teach, and then someone's technology wasn't working, like they forgot their mobile device at their other parent's house or something, and so we couldn't do what I planned. And you can't just wing it very easily and have it be a good experience. So having a plan C and D, and we'll learn how to do that as well. So just to give you a sense of the teaching methods, group collaboration is a really important one, and a great one, and a fun one. And that's part of what helps build the community in the classroom. Because part of this too, someone was saying one-on-ones isn't really, David was saying, one-on-ones aren't really that helpful for kids who don't have the social skills. Well, not only that, but one-on-ones don't build community and make you feel like you're a part of a bigger group and a part of something really special. You're getting knowledge, but you're not feeling like, I want to spend time with other Jewish kids, So that group collaboration really helps there. And the technology requirements. So here's just a link. I'm going to share this presentation with you, which is why there's a link there. And that just lets you know what the technical requirements are for Zoom. So for this class, we will be using Zoom, the software we're using right now, for us to meet. And so you would need to have the technology to meet those requirements to participate. The hardware requirements are also listed here. The tablet with the stylus. If you don't have a tablet, I have tablets, so I can send one to you. And I only charge a little bit just to keep people honest so that they try to take care of them. But really, that's not even necessary. I just want to make sure that everybody has all the tools that they need to do this. You don't need to have your students use a tablet, but because there are lots of things I like to do with the tablet, that's why we'll need that for class. If writing Hebrew is one of the requirements for your students, then you probably will want a tablet as a requirement as well, because it's going to be easier for them to use a stylus and practice writing on a tablet than any other type of technology device method. Any questions about that part? Okay. And just to give you a sense of the schedule, it was in the invitation that was sent to you, but these are the dates of the class and the cost and the time. Let's see, so you'll see that there are class dates starting at the end of August and every week through the end of September. And those are really going to be the core of learning what you need to know in order to teach online effectively. The additional courses, classes are for those folks who want to get a certificate of practice, which to me is the certificate that means you're hireable by anybody for next year. You've really not only attended the classes, but you've shown that you can do the work and be an effective teacher. And so if you want, and it doesn't cost anything extra to do that, it just means you have to be willing to do homework. So if you do that, then you are required to come to those additional 4 classes. And if you're teaching this school year, it's even more important to do those because that's where we're going to give you your support. You would share how things are going, some of the activities you've done, and how things went, and we could give you feedback. So those would be great opportunities for improvement and development. And then on May 11th, that last date, that would be the ePortfolio presentation day. And so I would hope that whether or not you come to those other classes, if you're just auditing, you'll at least come to that May 11th class to see what your peers are doing and to support them. Any questions about any of this so far? Okay, well, if not, then we're about to enter into the fun zone. So I'm going to show you a few things that you may be doing if you take this class. So let's see. This right here, what you're looking at is an online app called Mindomo. There's free account. I have a paid account, but either way, you could do a lot of things with the free account. I have the paid account though, so that my students can do work and submit their work to me, and it could be an ongoing exchange. I believe if you have a free account, you can only have maybe one project going on at a time, and you might not be able to go back and forth with correcting assignments and such. But it was only $65 for the whole year for, I think, however many students you have. So that's probably something your school would be okay with getting if you found this to be a valuable resource. So in this case, this student is learning about the Bible stories. And what I asked her to do was each week she would research one of the biblical heroes and then create this mind map. In her case, it's really more like showing the relationships between the biblical characters. Let's see, can we make this? Oops. Funny, the way that I have my screen set up, it's not letting me make it as big as it usually does. Maybe because I have Zoom up as well. But anyhow, you can see that she would find a picture of a character, and she'd have to do research in her cartoon Bible, and then she would write up a story about that person and the details of that person's life that she felt were important and that she wanted to remember, because she was having trouble remembering who did what. She vaguely knew the stories, but didn't know who was who. So here's another one, and she wrote all of this. I wrote this first one for Abraham just to show her what to do, and this was my note. And she decided to write long paragraphs, and that's perfectly fine. That's her way of expressing herself. And so you can see she might link into video, sometimes just graphics. This represents a link to a website. And part of this is it was her choice who to research at any time, based on her interest, based on discussions we had, and maybe if she felt like she didn't have the information that she needed about that person to effectively be a participant in the discussion, and that would be the person that she would research. Are there any questions about this? No? Okay. I'm going to show you another technology, and actually, if some of you would like, you are welcome to try this out. If you don't actually have to have a mobile device. You can minimize your Zoom screen so that it takes up only half of your screen. And let me see if I could demonstrate that. I'm not sure that I can while I'm teaching. Oh. I can't.
Farah would like to know if students are able to access, save, and keep their online work once class is over.
Excellent question. So, yes, the short answer is yes. It depends on the kind of work as to what method you would have for saving. So with this very specific technology, I'm paying a fee so that we could have saved work. But in terms of some of the games we play, So here's an example of some games that I've made, and you won't learn specifically how to make these games because this is really like above and beyond. You have to have an interest in coding to do this. But one nice thing about being in this class is if you tell me, boy, it would be really great if there was a game that did this and this. This is my hobby, so I might just make it for you. I've made several of these games for kids just because one of the kids needed it or wanted it, and then it made sense for me to do it. So here's one in particular. I had a boy that just would not learn the difference between Sadi and Ayin, Kaf and Chaf, Kaf and Pei, and Chet and Hey. Not that he refused to, but his brain just did not want to take it in from the methods that we were using. So, but now he gets a perfect score on this game, which makes me so happy. And this is called Monkey Rescue. And so there are hippos and cubs and sharks or fish or something. And you've got ones with the letter Chet versus Hey. And, some of them are imposters and you're supposed to catch them. So these are the imposter letters. These are the innocents. And so you just move your mouse. And so this is how, if I capture the Pei, oh, I don't think I shared my audio with you. I might have to get off and get back on again. But what I'm hearing right now is that when I capture one of these imposters, and I hear applause, and then if I capture something innocent, then I hear them make some kind of goofy scream. And then you could see at the top right that you get your points. So he got really good at this game just because he liked the game. And then he couldn't help but learn the difference between Sadi and Ayin and Pei and Kaf, etc. So I'm going to stop sharing and then reshare just so that you do have that audio. Okay.
So I didn't hear you. Did you say you designed that game?
Yeah, so this is my first game that I've made. So I hope that they get better over time. But yeah, this was one that I made specifically for a kid who was having trouble with those letters. This, like I said, this is not something that I would teach you. I would make you aware of it just in case you have an interest in making games. But this is really above and beyond what I think any school should expect of their teacher. But again, if you have a great idea for a game, then maybe I'll be able to make it for you. There's a bunch that I made specifically for some of my kids. One in particular wanted a Candyland type of a game. So that's where this one came from. And this is actually kind of similar to Monkey Rescue, but this is to get the kids who like this style of learning better. And so you just click on the little treat at the top, and then you have to eat the right treat for Ellie to grow. So eat the half, and if you get it wrong, let's see, I'm gonna get it wrong this time, and then he gets smaller. So either you're helping him grow up or he keeps shrinking. So and the kids have fun with that. This is one of those games or this is one of those environments where you can very easily incorporate like collaborative work. So I'll show you one other game.
Stephanie, before you leave this, Justin would like to know what's the app. Where'd you make it?
So this is Scratch, which is produced by MIT. And it's actually a software that's made for kids to learn how to do coding. And I could show you, this is what the code looks like. Instead of black and white numbers and letters, you use these blocks. They're like puzzle pieces that you put together to create the code. And so it's made for kids, but there are lots of adults that use it too. It was one of my third graders that I was complaining to because there weren't enough good Hebrew games out there when I started teaching, and I wanted to make it a lot of fun. So he's like, oh, did you know you could make your own games? So now I had no excuse anymore but to have good games in my class. But here's one of those And this is something that I made, but you could find other resources online, and we'll be looking creatively in that regard. What's available that's not necessarily Jewish, but that you could adapt for the purpose of learning Hebrew or Judaic studies. So I'm just going to bring up, click and pray free. So if you're learning tefillot with your kids, this is one of the things that we love to do. We play snakes and ladders. And you've got your characters here. And so when you click on a character, it rolls the die, chamesh, 5. And then you go to the, to the tefillah. Let me do that again. And they would read 5 words. Adonai doesn't count for us because it doesn't look the way it's pronounced. So, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu. And then they go back, and then they move 5 spaces, and they could practice counting Echad, Shtayim, Shalosh, Arba, Chamesh. And so this is the kind of thing that we'll be thinking about, is how can we utilize existing resources and put a Jewish spin on it so that there's a good reason to use it in class. There's another one that I've made. Oops. And that would be, this is just a graphic image. But we use it like guess who. So the kids, I added all the Hebrew here. But even if all we had was this picture of all these boys, and then we get to practice asking questions like, Yesh lo se'ar chum? Does he have brown hair? Ken lo, getting them to have that conversational experience. So we'll be practicing that kind of stuff. Any questions about any of that so far?
That really looks terrific.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it only gets better because my kids, who won't get off the computer with me, after I create something, they love to tell me how it could be better, which I very much appreciate. This game in particular, we don't actually use this game board because one of my students remixed it right here. He did a similar, but made it a little bit better by having this question mark where you could be reminded of the instructions and different little changes. So it's been really great. So what I'd like for some of you to try with the last 15 minutes is going into Nearpod so that you could just see what one of these interactive experiences is like. So this is, let's see, which one did I choose? I think I chose the Torah. So what I'm going to show you right now is a presentation on Nearpod, which allows you to have the kids do interactive question and answer, and all the while you get to see all of their work. This is kind of one of the things I was referring to when I had mentioned that you get to see everybody, even if they're quiet, you get to see how they're doing. And then this is also a way that you could help build their confidence and validate them when you could anonymously share their work. So if you'd like to participate, you can go to nearpod.com, and I'll do that up here, nearpod.com. Okay, maybe I'll do it in a different browser. And then you'll put in the 5-digit code that was on that other screen, which let me go back to that. So DTOYG, I'm going to put that into the chat. Oh, and yes, those games are all free to the public. So if you look for SBIRAC in Scratch, you could find all my games. Okay, so this is what you're looking at right now. This is the teacher view. And I'm just going to log in here to Nearpod. Hi, I'm teaching right now. Okay, so you put that code in, and then you just put your name. You don't, the other is kind of like a nickname if you want to put a nickname also. And I'm gonna check my other account just to see. Oh, it looks like there are 5 people. So right now I'm looking at the teacher account, which shows me all the participants. I'll try to remember to tell you when we're looking at the teacher account versus the student account. And then this is what the students see. The students can't move on unless the teacher wants them to move on. So as soon as I advance to the next slide, I could see my question, and I could see all the people who might respond to it. And now here's what it looks like to the student. Now I can see this word, and let's see, what do I think is the right answer? I'm gonna guess queen. And I'm gonna hit send. Now this is the screen they're gonna see until you as the teacher are ready to move on. Meanwhile, the teacher can see all the students' responses and see, okay, everyone's responded. Now we could start talking about it. I can share the answer. And here's what the students see. They see how many people got it correct, how many got incorrect. And then they could see what their choice was. Uh-oh, I got the wrong thing. Well, nobody but the teacher and I have to know that. Now the teacher could say, you know, why do you think, it looks like most of us got Melech. How do you think that they knew that Melech was king? And people might say, well, you know, because of this, because of that. And this was a tricky question, you know, because queen is Malka, so they're very similar. They have the same root. You know, but how do we know the difference between king and queen? And that's where they might say, oh, the hey, you know, that makes it a girl word usually. And when you don't have the hey, it may not be a girl word. You know, whatever it might be, they could be discussing the right and wrong answers. And it might even be the kid who got it wrong that now understands the right answer and can share that. So here's another question. So Baruch, how do we pronounce it? And how do you pronounce this word? So I could finally submit. And over here, I can see how students are doing, if they submitted their answers or not. I know to wait for people. If I don't wait, then, you know, they kind of miss out on sharing. And so I see one person hasn't shared yet, but I'll share the answers with you. And so here, I got 1 out of 2 correct. And it shows me my answers. And again, so this is a way to, you know, this is a way for the teacher to do an assessment, but it's fun and it doesn't feel like an assessment.
So what age group would you say that this particular example you're showing us is targeted to? Would
So
this be
this
4th grade,
one,
third or 4th grade?
well, this specific one is associated with the Torah blessings. So I made this for 5th and 6th grade. However, these same activities, but with different prayers, I've also made for 3rd grade, and it worked just as well. You know, but it's the prayers that they're learning. With 3rd grade also. So we'll go through a couple more slides, and then I'll show you another presentation that I use more with the 3rd grade. And 3rd grade at our school is learning Hebrew. I'm sorry, learning how to read the alphabet and just starting to learn Hebrew. Now this activity is a little different. This is a drawing activity, and you could circle all the words that refer to God here by using these demarcation tools at the bottom left. We've got like a pen and a highlighter. You could type words. You could even bring in a picture. So here I'm gonna, in red, I can circle my answers. Oops, that's a little too dark. We can undo. Okay. Now, the reason why I like to have a tablet is sometimes I ask the students to write in Hebrew. And so it's easier to do that with a stylus than with a computer mouse or something else, or their finger. So I'm going to hit send here.
Stephanie, does this work on all devices? Is Nearpod adaptable on all?
Nearpod does work on all devices. Zoom, on the other hand, so I'm going to ask you in a moment to do some interactive things with Zoom. Zoom has limited capabilities on certain types of devices. So that's, again, why whenever possible, I ask the kids to be on desktop or laptop computers and have a tablet or device. If they can't, they can't, but at least they're in class. So what I'm going to do now, we're looking at the teacher view for this, and I can see everyone's work again. But when I share, I see my name, but you don't see the name. So it's anonymous again as to whose work this is. But this might be an opportunity for me to share with the kids and to say, you know what, it looks like this person was on the right track, but can you do a little help finding some of the other mentions of God here? So why don't we all try to finish this one up? And you can do that by take your mouse, hover towards the top of your screen. It might be the bottom, but in this case, it's probably the top. You should either see an icon that says annotate, or you'll see something that says more. And if you click on more, then you should see annotate. If you have a problem with that, you could, on that same bar, if you go to the button that says participants, and you click on that, then you'll see your name and you could raise your hand, and I'll be able to see that you're having a problem. That digital way of raising the hand brings a notification up on my screen so that I know to address an issue. But here I see someone's already helping me by circling some of the some of the milim. And something else that I'll often do with the students is have a prayer up like this, and I'll say, okay, as a group, let's find all of the words with this shoresh, a specific shoresh. And, the kids each pick a different color, and they're racing to circle as many as they can with that shoresh. And, oftentimes they double and triple up on one, and that's perfectly fine. So I'm going to also circle something here. So it looks like they've all been circled, but I want to make my mark, so I'm going to do it again too. doesn't really matter that they've been done. So, but you can see how this could be a collaborative experience for the students. So I now.
So did you develop those lessons on Nearpod?
Yes.
Yourself?
So
Okay.
these lessons I developed on Nearpod myself, but this is actually very easy to do and does not take a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the things that you would be learning how to develop. Oh, and that's the end of the presentation. Okay. Do you want to leave this presentation? Yes. I'm going to show you just part of one more. This is one for the third graders. And I believe this is something that I use at the very beginning of school, if I pick the right one, just to see where they are, because technically they learned the alphabet in second grade. But they usually don't remember it very well. And so I could see where we're starting out. So I'm putting this into the chat. Again, you could open a new Nearpod session and then put this in as the pin. And so that's what I'm going to do here. I exited. And I'm going to put in this join session. And, I kind of forgot. So someone was asking the question of saving the kids' work. In a case like with Scratch, if we were playing a game in Scratch, some of my games are like art projects where, let's say, they get to, let's see if I have it up. And these kinds of things, you know, they could create art. It doesn't have to be with Scratch, it doesn't have to be with this, but they're using pictures that, you know, maybe have vocabulary words, like maybe you've got a picture of a synagogue, maybe you have Justin's magnetic shoal. And so you have all those parts, and they'll want to create a picture and then talk about it because they know the word for, you know, Yad and Torah and Sidur. But anyway, so they might have created some kind of a picture and then they want to save that. And so I teach them how to take screenshots, or here's my little snipping tool, which is in, like, if you have Windows 8 and above or 7 and above, then you have this. And I just teach them how to take the picture and then save the picture. And I often save it for them, and I send it in my weekly email to the parents, just saying, like, look at what your kids did. You know, I'll want to take pictures of their work as well. But in a lot of cases, the kids just want to do it too, so that to make sure they have it. So coming back to this is one of the activities that I start my kids out with. You know, kind of tell me which OTL look familiar to you. And so here they can circle all the ones they think they know. And then I save that information so that I can use that as a starting point and see, okay, this is what they think they know. Now let's do activities. Do they really know them? And then I could monitor their progress throughout the year. I have lots and lots of screenshots of their work in order to monitor their progress. So any other questions or comments? We've got 2 more minutes. So ask anything you want for 2 minutes.
It's all very clever and engaging. And how long did it take you to develop these sets of tutorials that you just demonstrated to us?
So the games that I make in Scratch, they take a long time, frankly, to make cool ones, which is why that's not really a part of the course, and it also takes some coding. But the Nearpod and the Mindomo, those things really don't take long at all. I've made some pretty good Nearpod activities in 20 minutes. So, and that's what I hope to show you, is how to do it, and then tips and tricks to make it much faster.
So are you collecting at the BJE, is there going to be a library of these things to build up online courses for various different levels of Hebrew proficiencies and grades and other curricula? Is that a hope that within so many years, basically teachers will be able to walk in and have their choice of 20,000 pages of games or however it might be?
Well, Linda and I haven't talked about that specifically, but that is a hope of mine in general, to have a lot of resources out there available for teachers. And actually, when I was at the CAGE conference just this past weekend, someone came up to me and said that they have money if people want to do this. So I was like, me, you know, I do that. And there are synagogues that I know that want money. So I actually see this as being a very possible reality, that we'll have a library of resources for you.
That's great.
You're welcome to use all the ones that I already have. And and even if you're not taking the class, although if you are taking the class, I'll be able to send you directly to them. You won't have to go search for them online, I suppose. Well, that's time. So any other questions before we go, or comments?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you use a textbook or a set curriculum as a foundation for your work, or are you creating everything from scratch?
Thank you for asking that. So part of the flexibility of this course is for you to learn how to utilize these resources but using your existing curriculum. So I've actually, at the synagogue I work for, we've used 2 or 3 different books in the past 3 or 4 years that I've been doing this, and there hasn't been any issue with that in terms of the way that I'm going to teach you to teach online. That should not be a problem. As long as the overall goals of your school haven't changed drastically, that would be potentially a problem. So I guess the answer is maybe.
I think you have a couple more questions in the chat room about smart notebook, smart lab. Let's see.
Oh, okay. So I don't really know what smart notebook is. If you tell me, I might be able to answer your question. Oh, and Nearpod does work on mobile devices. It actually started as an iPad app, but it works both Android and Mac and computers and devices, even phones. But Farah, if you could clarify your question a little bit more.
I was just responding to the previous comment.
Oh, okay. Smart notebook.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
This is Shraga. Okay, so the smart notebook, the smart lab is the software that goes with the smart, I guess, smart board.
Oh, okay.
So I just had a webinar for the smart lab, which is pretty much the 2 softwares that you had shown, where the kids can access on their mobile devices or on a computer to get immediate feedback. And it also saves the results into an Excel spreadsheet, so you can use it for grading as well, and to show how many of the students got the correct answers or incorrect, like you had shown. So I noticed that the apps that you were using were pretty much what they already have, and most of their work in the Smart Lab is already templates. So all you do, it's there, and you just edit or add in your own pics if you want.
Yes, and actually part of the way
I heard that there are some changes to the REC.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Period.
Could you
I was
repeat?
just wondering if I am still on the committee.
Adele, I think you need to mute your screen.
So what I was going to say to Shraga, though, is I'm glad you brought that up, because actually the way I chose the technology that I'm going to share with you in this course is I was trying to find technologies that the students are already used to, because they're already using them in their public school or private school settings. And that includes, using these apps that, even if it's not the exact same app that they're using in school, has similar functionality so that they know what to expect. They're going to be easily adaptable when they encounter them. And it's also going to meet their expectations, because they've got some great things in some of these schools, some really amazing resources, and we want to show that we're not light years behind. We're right there with it. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing me with what you showed me. It's just it also shows that it's not just with what you showed. It's not limited. Where it's like the Smart Lab, it's limited to their software only. Whereas what you're showing, no matter where you are, it's more adaptable for the students.
Yeah, and hopefully making this accessible even to kids who are in rural places who don't have this kind of opportunity in their school system, can't even make it to the synagogue because it's too far. They'll still get to benefit. So,
Stephanie, thank you so much for jumping in and doing this taste of the class for us. It was a great way to get excited, and I hope that all of you will decide to learn with Stephanie as we go forward.
Well, thank you. And thank you to all of you. And if there aren't any more questions, I will stop the recording.